By 1995, kitsch was on the comeback. The grunge era came to a tragic end the year before, and now a new generation of kids, raised on the campy fun of Pee-wee's Playhouse and newly connected to the internet, were teenagers, Lindy hopping to swing music. Intoxicated by irony, other young Gen Xers were road tripping to Las Vegas to see resurgent crooners Wayne Newton and Tom Jones. Having moved on from Batman, Tim Burton's celebration of B-movie pioneer Ed Wood was collecting Academy Awards, and he was deep into pre-production on his next film, the cornball sci-fi comedy Mars Attacks. With the cultural winds shifting, new Batman director Joel Schumacher had an idea, one that perhaps started as a joke, but ultimately came to symbolize a shift not only in the Batman franchise, but the zeitgeist as a whole. Joel Schumacher was going to put nipples on the Batsuit. Welcome to Superhero Cinema Club, an in-depth exploration of the history of superhero films. My name is Mark Schiff, and joining me as always, it's the Harvey Dent to my Two-Face, Mike Karn.
We're one and the same, man. What can I say?
Does that
mean you're the evil side and I'm the good side?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. You had to know
Harvey.
I was going to go with that one for this movie, Mike.
I was really curious what you were going to do. I was like, is it going to be Riddler and Two-Face? Is it going to be Drew Barrymore to my Jim Carrey? I was trying to figure it out here.
I suppose there were a few options, but yes, it had to be the Two-Face personality, Harvey Dent, and Two-Face. If you haven't figured it out yet, that means we're going to be discussing the 1995 film Batman Forever on today's episode. As with all of the Batman movies we're discussing this season, you can watch that on HBO Max streaming service. We would highly recommend that you revisit the film. Adds to the enhanced enjoyment of our podcast, we believe. But to quote Harvey Dent, you do you. I don't know if that's a quote from him or not.
It's a paraphrase, sure.
It feels like something you might say. So, Mike, a lot to talk about with this one. Kind of a soft reboot of the Batman series as they reach the midway point of what would be a four-film, what would that be, quadrilogy?
Anthology, maybe.
There we go.
Like that.
I like it. A lot of changes in this one. We'll get into that momentarily, but one of the biggest changes in the film had to do with the design of the Batman costume, more specifically, a certain, let's say, pair of appendages that they added to it in this film. Mike, I'm talking about the nipples on the Batsuit. This was quite a controversy when it happened at the time. It remains a strong point of contention, so I'll go ahead and put it to you straight. Are nipples on the Batsuit an affront to all of humanity or not a big deal? Lay it on us, buddy.
Wow, that's quite a question right out the gate. I'm going to say not a big deal. And so the reason I say that is because I was 8 years old, the tender young age, when this movie came out. And this was a very family-friendly version of Batman. It was something that my family, we were very much fans of Jim Carrey at the time. So it was really fun to see him in this role. And it was something that we could all watch together. And the nipples were not something that even really stood out to me, quote unquote, at the time when I was a kid. And I gotta say, even watching it this time 2 days ago, I didn't even really think about it at all while watching it. It wasn't something that was even on the table as one of the worst things about this movie while I was watching it. I would say there's a much more egregious, gratuitous butt shot if we're talking about some gratuitous anatomical camera work here or batsuit shots. There's a very right in your face black rubber butt crack filling up the whole screen there, and that was something I thought was way more egregious.
I think you're spot on with this. It's not that big of a deal. When you look, you can notice there's a couple shots in particular, I think right at the beginning. I think it's like literally the first shots of the movie is him kind of suiting up. And I think you get your first peek at the nipple at that point, the nip slip, if you will, right away. But beyond that, it's not like the camera lingers on them and he's not licking his tongue and like giving himself like a little nipple rub or anything.
He's not, no.
It's one of those things that you might even honestly miss it unless it wasn't called out, and it kind of became its own controversy, so to speak, but it's really not too egregious. So I'm kind of inclined to agree with you. It's not that big of a deal. That being said, we can talk about it now. I'm not a big fan of this bat suits in this movie. I really think what they went for was apparently Joel Schumacher, the director of this film, taking over for Tim Burton, kind of talked about how it was supposed to be more of a like a Greek statue kind of look, where similar to classic statue. However, I kind of feel like it's far too detailed and frankly physiologically explicit, including the nipples there and the butt crack that you alluded to. You know, there's some talk that Joel Schumacher, who is openly gay, kind of homoeroticized Batman in his two films. In fact, George Clooney was quoted at one point as saying that Joel Schumacher told him specifically that he saw Batman as kind of a gay icon. I think that's fine. And obviously, there's nothing wrong with a gay filmmaker bringing his perspective to it. I think you can get a little sense of that in these, and just again, the physiology of the bat suits. Again, with all respect, these are probably the gayest of the Batman movies, I would say. Not in a bad way. Again, I don't want to sound like that's a pejorative, but I think that there is a little bit of a lingering, and the physiology of the bat suit where you see every single muscle ripple. You've got nipples, you've got extreme details on it. It's just all a little too much.
I mean, there's definitely something about any superhero movie where the actor is taken into a studio and they take detailed photographs from all sides and then they create this, hard molded plaster of their body and they create this like skin tight thing that shows every ridge of their muscles, or in the case of Shazam, they accentuate and make the costume more than what the actual actor has, but this one just kind of feels like it is made of just big, thick rubber. It's like it's not tactical, it's not like he's wearing a bulletproof vest. It's really just something that is used to accentuate physique, much like Shazam does. And yeah, it's not my favorite either. It has kind of like a sheen to it. It's very shiny.
Yeah.
It's kind of glossy looking almost. Again, this is another one that I've seen in person because I took that. I went to the Warner Brothers backlot during the 80th anniversary of Batman, and so they had all the suits and all the Batmobiles and everything. This was one of the suits that it was like this one and the George Clooney one. I just kind of glanced at and then immediately walked away from because I had no interest in them.
Yeah, it feels to me that this costume was more designed to sell toys than it was to be something somewhat realistic for Batman to wear.
The Batmobile
And
especially feels like a Burger King toy, basically.
you want to adjudicate that now? I'm happy to do it. I hate it. I absolutely hate the Batmobile on this. If you've listened to our previous episodes, you've heard me wax poetically about what a beautiful automobile the Tim Burton Batmobile is. I went so far as to call it my favorite vehicle of any sort in film history. I know that it's not personally your favorite Batmobile, but I think regardless of where you come down on what is the coolest Batmobile, there's no denying that the initial design of the Batmobile is absolutely iconic. What it looks like they did to this was basically like, well, what if we just stripped away some panels and stuck in glowing lights and made it glow and light up on top of that? Wouldn't that be cool? And it's like, no, no, it's not. It's not cool at all. I hate it. I absolutely hate this Batmobile.
This movie loves glowing lights for some reason. There's the whole sequence where Robin fights the street gang, and it's like the black light crew. They're all painted up, and the Batmobile, and all the lights that Riddler is creating with his box, and creating a giant glowing question mark in the sky. I don't know what it is about the production design in this movie, but apparently they just loved glowing lights for this movie.
You're spot on with all of that. And that leads us very elegantly into our first category of our show, the Tale of the Cape. Like the previous Batman films, Batman Forever was released in June on June 16th, 1995. As we mentioned, this film was not directed by Tim Burton. After scaring the kids with his extremely dark take, and Mike as well, it seems, who
I'm still frightened.
gave a begrudging good
Oh,
to
come
the
on.
absolute classic superhero film, Batman Returns. Warner Brothers was in search of a new director as Tim Burton walked away. He did have a large role as producer in this film, so he wasn't completely removed. He was involved in producing capacity, but they set out to find a new director. Now, they pitched it to a number of different directors, including Die-Hard director John McTiernan. I would love to see a McTiernan Batman. I think
Hell
it's
yeah, that sounds
really,
amazing.
really unfortunate that he turned down the offer to direct. Instead, they settled on Joel Schumacher. Now, Joel Schumacher, for those youngsters out there, very, very fascinating film career, Mike. I think people maybe can't appreciate what a big director he was during the 1990s. He had a pretty incredible run, and in some ways is almost emblematic of 1990s full spectrum of films. He got his start after having really serious drug abuse issues as a young man. Yeah, he, I believe, addicted to heroin and lived actually homeless. He had a very traumatic childhood. His mom died when he was quite young
Hmm.
and got clean when he was about the age of 30. Got involved initially in the world of fashion, actually, and then started pivoting towards film and actually wrote some of the late 70s blaxploitation films like Car Wash and The Wiz. He is credited as screenwriter on the Michael Jackson
No kidding.
starring and Diana Ross, yeah, reimagining of The Wizard of Oz, The Wiz. So, kind of an interesting start to his career. Then in the 80s, he started directing. His first film credit was the Lily Tomlin film, The Incredible Shrinking Woman, that for some reason I felt like I always saw on TV as a kid. I've never
Yeah.
really properly watched that film as an adult. It was a terrible flop at the time and went way over budget, but I just have these vague memories of her being tiny and being surrounded by large objects. After The Incredible Shrinking Woman, he had one more flop, DC Cab, a film that has been largely forgotten to time, but he scored his first big hit with 1985's St. Elmo's Fire. This is the movie that is largely credited with helping launch the Brat Pack of the 1980s, and he followed that up with what I believe to be a true vampire classic, 1987's The Lost Boys. Mike, have you ever seen The Lost Boys? Is that a big
Yeah, I
movie
have.
for you?
I love the saxophone player at the beginning.
The sexy sax guy out on the pier. Real big movie of my youth. Probably one of the first. I don't know if it was R-rated. I mean, I would have been 8 when that movie came out. It was a little above an 8-year-old's comprehension, and so it felt sort of
Yeah,
risque for me as a kid to watch it. But it had the Coreys in it. It had a young Jason Patric, and of course Kiefer Sutherland,
Kiefer, yeah.
absolutely iconic as a vampire. Now, his 90s get very interesting, in my opinion. He kicks it off in 1990 with Flatliners, reuniting with Kiefer Sutherland, Julia Roberts, Oliver Platt, Kevin Bacon was in it. Just an absolute banger of a cast, a movie I have great affection for. I've not seen it in a very long time, but another one that was always on cable when I was a kid and really enjoyed Flatliners. Next up was Dying Young. I have no recollection of this movie, but it was another Julia Roberts film. Then he had what was quite possibly one of the biggest breakouts of his career and a true cultural sensation, Falling Down, a film which we may be talking more about a little bit later in this podcast. He followed that up with one of the big trends of the 90s, the John Grisham legal adaptations. This was 1994's The Client. Tommy Lee Jones, Susan Sarandon, and a young Brad Renfro. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
This was a pretty massive hit at the time and it really is emblematic of the Grisham era of film history. There were have to be at least a half dozen John Grisham adaptations that made it into theaters in the 90s. He was absolutely on fire in terms of IP and book adaptations in the 90s.
I think there's whole like DVD collections you can buy that's like the John Grisham collection where Pelican Brief and The
Time to
Client.
Kill,
Yeah, exact. Time to Kill.
another
Yeah.
Joel Schumacher film that came out after
Oh,
Batman
wow.
Forever. It was his immediate follow-up. So, really interesting filmography. He obviously went on, as we mentioned, Time to Kill, then Batman and Robin in 1997, which will be our next film we discuss, 1999's 8 Millimeter, and ended the 90s with Flawless, his return to writing, which starred Robert De Niro and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Again, a film that has been utterly memory hold from time. So Joel Schumacher had a very interesting career in the 1990s. Things kind of went south from there, but at the time he really was known among filmgoers and was probably a pretty safe choice. I think that is reflected in this film, which quite consciously is back for the kids. So essentially, they hired husband and wife screenwriters Lee and Janet Scott Bachler to write the script. Mike, I checked their IMDb. They really haven't done much outside of this film,
Oh wow.
outside of 2014's Pompeii, which was
Oof.
directed
I,
by Paul W.S. Anderson and
yeah.
starred Kit Harington.
Yeah, I remember the trailers for that coming out. Yeah. Jon
They
Snow in Pompeii.
Exactly. Otherwise, not a big screenwriting duo. It was also rewritten by future Academy Award winner Akiva Goldsman. Akiva would go on to pen A Beautiful Mind, Ron Howard's film that won not only Best Screenplay, but Best Picture. Other creatives involved in the film include cinematographer Stephen Goldblatt, who I was quite surprised to learn, Mike, got an Academy Award nomination for Batman Forever. Personally, I would not have nominated this film for Best Cinematography. I think it's astonishing, quite frankly, that it was.
It
Nevertheless,
must have been a slow year, man.
it's
It's not-
really amazing. 95 was the year of Braveheart that cleaned
yeah.
up at the Oscars, and Mel Gibson won quite a few awards, including Best Director for that film. A real sensation in it, and honestly, a great film, despite the problematic nature of its star.
Yeah, and this movie was actually nominated for two more Oscars on top of that. Did you know that? Best sound and best effects for sound effects editing. This was back when they were distinguishing sound and sound mixing kind of thing between two different awards, which I don't think they do anymore, but pretty shocking to learn that Batman Forever was nominated for three Oscars.
It absolutely is shocking. I believe perhaps the most Oscar nominated of the Batman films. I'll have to double check that, but that is
Oh, Dark Knight probably because Heath Ledger won.
Heath Ledger won for The Dark Knight. However, I don't know. I'd have to look it up and
Yeah.
to see, but the fact that certainly it was nominated for more Oscars than the Tim Burton films, despite not winning any of them, is frankly incredibly disappointing to me. And speaking of disappointing, this film has a new composer to do the score, a man by the name of Elliot Goldenthal. Now, Elliot Goldenthal is also a future Oscar winner. He won for 2002's Frida, which was directed by his wife, as a matter of fact. He's a talented composer, but Mike, in the shadow of the iconic score by Danny Elfman, this pales very, very deeply in comparison. It's frankly kind of annoying to me. I think it takes a lot of its cues from the 1960s Batman movies and TV show. There's a lot of like trumpet blasts at the end of scenes, really no memorable themes whatsoever. There's maybe some allusions towards the Elfman score, but I think it is very, very poor in comparison to
I
the Danny Elfman score.
I just don't understand why they didn't do the same thing with Superman, where yes, John Williams is now no longer involved, but we're still going to use his score. Like, why not do that? Danny Elfman's theme is so far and away better than whatever this was. I mean, it's not memorable at all. Like you said, it's just kind of maybe a little bit tying into the feel of the Adam West era a little bit. I think that's kind of what they were going for with this movie overall, was trying to throw back to campiness a little bit. I guess the music is kind of emblematic of that, but yeah, this is not a good score. It's not a good Batman theme song. We have Seal coming in on the soundtrack too at the same time, which I watched that music video in preparation for this, and I have no idea what's going on in that. He's just standing in front of the bat signal, shirt wide open, belting a song about a kiss from a rose. What does that have to do with Batman? I don't know. So the music
Well,
in this movie overall is quite bad. Despite Seal song actually being pretty good, I think. But
I was going to say that leads us to talk about the soundtrack, which was quite popular. This went double platinum and had two absolutely massive singles. As you alluded to, Seal's Kiss from a Rose which I think has since become honestly a 90s classic. It's one of those songs that, depending on how you look at it, so bad it's good or just plain good, regardless. I love it. At the time, I found it very cloying and it was so popular that it was kind of annoying in the aftermath of decades where you're not hearing it on the radio constantly when it comes on.
It's a really good song structure.
Yeah,
The way that it's
it's
laid
great.
out is actually really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Seal's vocals on it are fantastic. I love the harmonies. It's quite a beautiful song. It has absolutely nothing, to your point, to do with the actual plot of the film, unlike the Prince soundtrack, which at least incorporated elements from the film into the various songs, but big hit at the time and, in fact, a Grammy Award-winning song. Beyond that, the Batman Forever soundtrack also had Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me by U2. Now, in
Oh, wow.
1995, U2 was no longer the biggest band in the world as they kind of had been through, I would say, the mid 80s through the early 90s. They were, I think, unquestionably probably one of the five biggest bands in the world. They were really heralded for their politically aware lyrics and ability to just write really catchy rock songs.
Yeah.
They were also quite fearless, and I really respect that about them, that they did not kind of go in the direction that people wanted them to. And by the mid 90s, they were quite enchanted with the new emerging electronic sounds that were coming out of the UK. To that end, they got Nelly Hooper, who was involved with trip hop acts like Massive Attack, to produce this track.
Really?
Mike, I gotta tell you, I think this is one of my 10 favorite U2 songs. I absolutely love it. What are your thoughts?
I apologize. I haven't listened to it, but I'm super intrigued now knowing that the guy from Massive Attack is involved because I love Massive Attack.
Really different from their other stuff. It's almost, I guess there is kind of guitar, but that's really kind of brings the electronic elements to the forefront. I think it's an amazing song. I absolutely love this and Kiss from a Rose. So props to those two tracks. Now, the rest of the soundtrack actually had a really heavy hitting lineup, I would say, of not only iconic artists of the 90s, like The Offspring and Michael Hutchence of In Excess. Sunny Day Real Estate is on that thing. One of the only songs from the soundtrack that's actually featured in the film, Bad Days by the Flaming Lips. Massive Attack as well on the soundtrack.
Yeah, of course.
Mazzy Star. It's a pretty loaded lineup. Nick Cave is on the soundtrack with an
This
excellent song,
it
There Is a
sounds
Light.
like this is a well justified double platinum album.
What's interesting to me about this soundtrack is that, much like the film itself, the talent involved does not lead to the sum of its collective parts, a theme that we will be returning to throughout this podcast as it relates to the film. The one other song that I quite enjoy from the soundtrack is the Riddler song by Method Man. Now, this is 1995, peak Wu-Tang era. This is a song that honestly I wasn't really familiar with, but as a massive Wu-Tang fan, it was quite a unexpected delight to come in and hear my guy Johnny Blaze, Method Man, do a song on a Batman soundtrack. So the soundtrack was a hit. The production design was done by a new crew this time. It was now, the production design was handled this time by a woman by the name of Barbara Ling. Now, Barbara Ling has quite an extensive filmography and, in fact, would go on to win the Academy Award for Best Production Design in 2019 for a film that you and I both love, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in
Hell
Hollywood.
yeah. Well deserved.
Very well deserved. Very interesting filmography because after Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, there's a film called Hearts in Atlantis and then No
Oh yeah.
Reservations, The Lucky One, Fallen in 2016, and then 2019's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Very talented production designer, but Mike, again, when compared to the absolutely iconic Gotham City that Tim Burton and his crew were able to assemble, I think it pales very deeply in the wrong direction in comparison. It's just not as good.
They took the aesthetic from Batman Returns. I even commented on it during our last episode about how Gotham is starting to become populated by these giant buff statues of like men holding levers and they're half naked or just covered by a loincloth or something. They took that and completely ran with it to the nth degree. Even in the circus scene, there's 8 statues at every interval of the circus tent. That's not something that you can tear down easily and take with you as a circus. I don't know what's going on here, but it's like they took every aspect of Gotham and turned it up to 11 while also somehow channeling 1966 through it. And it's kind of a horrible Frankenstein's monster of both things in a way. You know what I
Well
mean?
said. Absolutely. Yeah, it's like a lot of elements of this film. It is pitched to 11, as you said, and it's similar to the Tim Burton stuff, but because it's a facsimile rather than the original, it just can't help but pale in comparison. And that is really maybe the overall theme of everything about this movie. It's a bastardization of what Tim Burton had done before. Tim Burton, as I mentioned, served as a producer on this film, so it's understandable that his influence would bleed through. But nevertheless, when you're doing something that is a copy of one of the most iconic visual filmmakers in terms of a distinct style, it's just going to look poor in comparison. Despite all of our criticisms here, Batman Forever was a massive hit. It was $336 million at the box office, almost a full $100 million more than Batman Returns. It was the
Holy
second,
crap.
it's amazing, right? The second biggest film of 1995 behind, any guesses?
95.
This is an absolute iconic, maybe one of the most important films of all time.
Forrest Gump?
You're so close because it stars Tom Hanks. However, it is 1995's Toy Story, the very first fully computer animated film that launched the Pixar empire. Undoubtedly one of the most significant films ever made, launched an entire revolution.
Yeah.
So it was a huge hit. To your point, it was very family friendly. And that started with a story that featured far more comical takes, let's say, on Batman's villains and an entirely new Batman himself. So after the Tim Burton films, despite being offered $15 million to come back for the third one, Michael Keaton said, "Nah, I'm good. I want to move on to other stuff." I think in hindsight, that was a smart move from him.
Probably a good move, yeah.
So they had to recast and they went with Val Kilmer. Initially, they had actually wanted to do, and this could have been interesting, but again, I think given what Schumacher's ultimate sensibility turned out to be, I'm glad they didn't go with this choice. There was talk of doing Batman Year One for the third and making it a prequel, which would have starred Ethan Hawke. This is, again, intriguing in theory, and I could see young Ethan Hawke in 1995. I mean, I think he's a phenomenal actor. Um,
Yeah.
I could see him in the Batsuit in my mind's eye. That is not what came to be. They tossed around a few other names, including William Baldwin, Rafe Fiennes, who would go on to play Alfred in the Lego Batman
No.
movie,
Yeah, that's not right.
and a little actor by the name of Daniel Day-Lewis.
No, man. None of these guys. I'm sorry. This is not, none of these actors have the jawline to play Batman, I think. You're looking at
DDL
me.
as Batman? Are you kidding me, dog?
I
Now,
mean,
again, if this was the material he was
an
given,
incredible actor, of course.
if it's in this movie, it would be like putting caviar on peanut butter sandwich or something. Nevertheless, I absolutely could see, let's
All
just
right,
play
I guess I could
fantasy
say
at some
like
point.
he's pretty ripped in Last of the Mohicans. I don't know. I just is something about that is just not working for me. I don't know what it is.
Fair enough. They obviously settled on instead Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer was having an excellent 90s run and frankly an excellent 80s run. Val Kilmer passed away earlier this year. He's one of those guys whose death kind of brought into focus what an amazing actor he really was. He obviously got his start in the 80s with two incredible comedies, Top Secret, which is a classic Zucker Brothers spoof. If you haven't seen it, it is, I would say it's as good as Airplane, maybe one tier
Wow.
below The
Okay.
Naked Gun, but it's the same sensibility. It's the same type of comedy, 20 jokes per minute type movie. Comedy classic, in my opinion. Follow that up with Real Genius, which is another very lighthearted comedy where he's like a college student who's super smart. It's really fun. Of course, his big breakout came in '86 with Top Gun. What can you say? One of the absolute
Yeah, come on.
all-time films. And that was followed by 1988's Willow. Now, this is a movie that, as someone who has a handle, Mad Marticus, you may guess, has a bit of soft spot in my heart, even though that's not Mad Mardigan's name, but it's just a couple syllables off. And
I never put that connection together. Thank you for spelling that out for me.
I was nicknamed this by one of my fellow employees at Pizza Hut at the age of 19, and it stuck. I have a great spot in my heart for Willow, despite some of its flaws.
Was it Superhero Cinema Club's theme song author Chris Carnes by chance?
It was not actually, and in fact, I struggle to remember my homie's name. But if you're listening to this all these years later, thank you for giving me that moniker. In 1991, he was probably one of the most iconic music biopics of all time, and certainly one of the most uncanny casting choices in those film biopics. Jim Morrison in The Doors, directed by Oliver Stone, a movie I haven't revisited a very, very long time, but it is was truly like almost eerie how much he looked like Jim Morrison.
Yeah, it's a weird watch, but yeah, he's definitely ideal casting for the role.
And then a little film called Tombstone. Stay tuned for more on that. Other films included in 1985's Heat, the
Great movie.
absolute debacle of the Island of Dr. Moreau, and The Saint, another stab at comic book movies in '97.
Is that a comic book
Things,
movie?
yeah, it was based on a comic book, at least
Interesting.
a comic book character or a comic strip character.
Yeah, that one's not bad. I kind of like that one.
Things got a little weird towards the end of his career, and he starred in a whole bunch of straight to DVD movies. But Val Kilmer, I think, is looked back at now as an incredibly talented actor and a very eccentric and interesting personality. Looking back, is a really iconic actor. Along with Val Kilmer, they needed to get the villains of this film, starting with Harvey Dent Two-Face. Now, that role was eventually filled by Tommy Lee Jones, but there is an alternate world where either Al Pacino, Clint Eastwood, Martin Sheen, or Robert De Niro accept the offer. I guess I could see them, but it's also this version of Two-Face. No.
Or Billy D. Williams.
Billy D. Williams played Harvey Dent in the original Batman. The plan eventually was, I think, long term, if they had gotten there to have him become Two-Face, I think he could have done a great job. I'd have
Yeah,
loved to have seen Billy D. Williams. Unfortunately, it was not to be, and Tommy Lee Jones ended up being cast. Now, Tommy Lee Jones, absolutely iconic actor. A quick overview of Tommy Lee Jones' 1990s filmography. 1991, JFK, absolute banger. 1992, Under Siege with Steven Seagal, one of the great villainous performances in an action movie. You're shaking your head.
nah, bro. That movie
That's a
sucks.
two
Anything with
thumbs
Steven
up.
Seagal, I'm sorry. I can't endorse that.
Two thumbs up for me, buddy. Followed that up in 1993 with The Fugitive, I think a film that we both could consider an unequivocal masterpiece and an
Absolutely.
Academy Award-winning role where
Yeah.
he won Best Supporting Actor as Samuel Gerard. He followed that up in 1994 with the doubleheader of The Client and Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers, two absolutely iconic films from the decade. Later would go on in Men in Black, several other Men in Black movies, and of course, well, I'm not sure if it's his most iconic role because he's not the most iconic character in it, but he is indisputably a instrumental part of the Coen brothers 2007 masterpiece No Country for Old Men. So Tommy Lee Jones,
He's kind of the main character of that, in a way. It's him and
and
Josh
he's,
Brolin, basically.
yeah, I mean it's an ensemble film. it's tough when you're going against Brolin and Javier Bardem in an Oscar-winning role. Um, but yeah, he's instrumental to the film, and he really carries, I would say, the thematic weight of No Country. And of course, we're not done talking about Tommy Lee Jones in superhero films. We'll be seeing him again in a little Marvel movie
Oh
down the
yeah.
road. Stay tuned. Next up, the Riddler. A number of different names were once again raised, potentially Robin Williams, as we discussed previously. Michael
Yes.
Jackson was lobbying hard for the role, but they never really considered him seriously. Kelsey Grammer, who we'll be talking about eventually in Superhero Cinema Club. Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees, oddly enough. Matthew Broderick, and a couple comedians, Phil Hartman and Steve Martin. I can completely see Steve Martin as the Riddler. I can see that vividly in my imagination, Mike. Even
Yeah.
in this film, I could see him playing it. Alas, was not to be. They nabbed a man by the name of Jim Carrey. Now, again, we got to hit the IMDb because Jim Carrey was on a fanatical run at this point in his career.
It's like one of the best runs in film history.
It's
Like
it's
he's just
true
absolutely monstrous right now.
truly iconic. Actually had his start way earlier than we remember, and he even had a sitcom that ran on NBC in the late 80s that's kind of been forgotten for time. It was called The Duck Factory. It ran for 13 episodes in 1984. Now, this was a full 6 years before he joined the cast of In Living Color, which was probably his big breakout in terms of widespread popularity. But he actually had been in a number of films, including the lead role in the 1985 film Once Bitten, a kind of underrated vampire comedy that, again, I have vague recollections of watching on cable
Yeah.
television in the
Yeah.
90s. Nevertheless, his massive breakout came in February of 1994 when he starred in Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Now, this was one of the biggest comedies of the 90s, period. Followed that up just a couple months later with The Mask, another absolute smash hit comic book adaptation, although we won't
Yep.
be covering it here in Superhero Cinema Club, and finished his 1994, landed the hat trick with Dumb and Dumber. Point blank, I would say one of the 10 funniest movies of the 90s. I mean, Dumb and Dumber is, what can you say? That movie is hilarious.
It's one of the greatest comedies ever made. Yeah, I've heard him talk about this hat trick that he performed here, and he's kind of still in awe that it even happens. And like it completely slingshotted him to becoming like the number one comedy star, maybe of all time. Here,
I
it's
mean, if you're younger and you didn't live, you don't have living memory of what it was like to go through the Jim Carrey era like this, it was truly one of the greatest heaters all in the same year,
it's
which is
crazy.
now think of this, just 6 months later, he stars in Batman Forever, which then goes on to become, as I mentioned, the second biggest movie of 1995. His box office run was astonishing, quite frankly, and even followed it up in 95 with the immediate sequel, Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. Not a great movie,
Oh,
but
come on. That
it's
movie
not.
is
Come on.
hilarious. It's even
Nah,
better than the
man.
first one, I think.
What?
Yeah,
That is an unbelievable
I
take,
will
Mike.
fight you on this. Let's go.
Wow. Okay. I'm not going to go that far. Got a little bumpier from there. The Cable Guy was a flop, but has since become, I think, kind of a dark comedy cult classic, directed by Ben Stiller.
Yes.
Great movie, honestly. 97, Liar Liar, another big hit. Great performance in that film as well. And 1998's The Truman Show, which is an unequivocal masterpiece, in my opinion. An absolute 5 star, maybe one of my top. I'd have to go through the list, but could be a top 10 of the 90s for me. I absolutely love The Truman Show. I
Wow.
think it was a
Okay.
really brilliant film, and I think his casting is crucial to that film's success. Things from there get pretty good. They stay good for a while. He's in a number of massive hits, including the absolutely abysmal Grinch Stole Christmas movie, and a film that
Yeah.
I am going to tuck into my back pocket to talk about at some point in the future in Recommendation Corner. Not just yet, but one of my favorite films, very favorite films. In fact, shortlisted for potentially my favorite film outside of Back to the Future, of course. 2004's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, okay. Wow, yeah.
Mike, putting that in the back pocket for later, has so many future superhero cinema club stars that there's a lot of connecting tissue. We'll get
Sure.
to it eventually, but to see Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is to love Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It is an unequivocal 5-star masterpiece.
It's all right.
Get okay, all right. We're canceling the podcast. It's over. All right, then don't even troll. Don't even troll, folks. We're not done. One more incredible star and another marginal. Nicole Kidman, also on a heater. Born in 1967, which have made her 28 years old by my estimation when she made this film. Still quite young, incredibly beautiful, and what a talented actress she has gone on to become. She won the Academy Award for The Hours, where she played Virginia Woolf. The Others, Cold
That's a good movie.
Mountain,
That's not a good
Paddington,
movie.
bro. She's really become, I would say, one of the biggest stars of the streaming era on television as well. Big
She's
Little
everywhere.
Lies.
Yeah.
She does a really good job of balancing kind of commercial projects with interesting shows and takes risks. Her marriage to Tom Cruise was one of the big celebrity marriages of the late 90s. Now she's married to fellow Australian Keith Urban, Australian
Uh,
country star Keith Urban. She's an overall amazing force for good in Hollywood. I will give her a lot of props.
you talked a lot in Batman Returns about how inspirational Michelle Pfeiffer was to you and your early development. As I mentioned, I was 8 years old when this movie came out, and it was like between Cameron Diaz and The Mask and Nicole Kidman and Batman Forever, especially what we'll talk about, where the scene where she is legitimately completely naked in bed underneath the bedsheet when he comes to her. This was a very formulative movie for young 8-year-old Mike. And there's always the question of like, well, girls are icky. Ew. 8-year-old Mike was like, yeah, girls are icky, but those women are absolutely beautiful, and I know what I'm into. So it's this was a very formulative movie for me at a young age, for sure.
Wow. We'd love to hear it. Batman helping us boys become men.
That's
Back
right.
all the way back in the 90s. That is a very thorough look at the cast of Batman Forever. Now let's get into our categories, starting with Best Action Scene. One of the good things I will give this film credit for, Mike, it absolutely wastes zero time getting going. You get Batman in the full montage, putting on the Batsuit. You got Alfred with his trademark comic relief. Take a sandwich, to which Batman replies, I'll get drive through.
Oh man.
Horrible start, horrible jokes. And now we meet Two-Face. He's laying on the Two-Face puns. You get the slow reveal of his disfigurement. This was done by Rick Baker, who's an absolute legend of film makeup
Yeah.
through film history. Mike, don't care for it. Don't like the look of Two-Face. I don't like the costume of Two-Face. And quite honestly, I do not like Tommy Lee Jones' performance as Two-Face. I think he's doing the Joker. I think he's doing nothing but laugh hysterically. No character development whatsoever. You throw him right in at the beginning, doing villainous stuff without any kind of origin story.
Yeah.
Again, to the film's credit, they try to just rocket launch you into this world. It's immediate, not even 5 minutes in, you're getting the action scene. But what Tommy Lee Jones is serving up in this movie, I am not buying at all. And I'm just going to go ahead and give this award out now. Tommy Lee Jones is getting my bad guy award in
Oh
this film.
wow.
I can't stand what he's doing. And I think it goes back to a theme that we're kind of hammering already. This is a really, really talented actor. This is someone who is incredible in multiple films and, has won Oscars, deserved the Oscars he's won, carries the weight of one of the great movies of the 2000s in No Country for Old Men. And here he's just reduced to just cackling idiot. He's not even doing like Harvey Dent should have this incredible rich, complex, should I be good? Should I be bad?
Yeah.
The duality that is such a prominent theme in the first two Batman movies. And yet he's just reduced to, like I said, a cackling idiot the entire time. He's incompetent when it comes to his one goal of killing Batman. really, really dislike this character. Everything about him. I'm sorry.
No, you're not wrong. I was thinking the same thing when I was watching it on rewatch this time, was that he's basically just laughing the whole time. I think he went back to the Adam West era and saw what that actor did with Two-Face and was just like, all right, I'm just going to do that, basically. It doesn't work at all. He's basically taking the back seat to Jim Carrey. The two of them together are both just kind of laughing the whole time. They're not embodying their character at all. He's not embodying Two-Face just by laughing and cackling the whole time. Jim Carrey doesn't really embody the Riddler because he's basically cracking jokes and is also doing the Joker. So it's like we got two versions of the Joker in this film. You know, Tommy Lee Jones is, as you said, a phenomenal actor. He's one of the greatest actors maybe ever. You know, you could put him in like the short list of 50. He's reduced to just being wasted in this film. I don't really know why he even agreed to sign on to be this role.
You know why, Mike? His son told him to do it. Now,
Oh, wow, really?
you can't blame a guy for being in a family-friendly comic book film when your son wants you to do it. The thing is, it's not like he's phoning it in. He's definitely not phoning it in. It's just that his choices of just this like Joker-esque laughing jerk the whole time, it's awful. I found every scene he's in basically deeply unpleasant. I will say I do kind of enjoy the meet cute with Dr. Chase Meridian, Nicole Kidman's character. They're flirting immediately.
He flies in and lands right in front of her, looking her directly in the eye. It's like the
He
most
knows
forced,
what's up.
it's the most forced thing ever. But yeah, she looks amazing. So of course he's going to do that. He's like, hey, what's up, Dr. Chase Meridian? You want to know my secret identity?
I felt a little bit of sparks, not gonna lie. I think they have some real chemistry, especially when he's in the Batsuit. Now, the helicopter heist, he gets the vault, and this is another point to just go back to what we've been discussing. It's not simply enough that he jacks a vault and has people kidnapped inside of it and could potentially drop it on the people below, killing countless innocents. He has to fill it with acid, and not only acid, Mike, but boiling hot acid. They're like, oh, okay, sure, we could put acid in this and that would just melt the person. But what if it's also boiling hot acid? I mean, it's a hat on a hat on a hat. Everything in this
It
movie is
doesn't make it
overkill.
more deadly. It does
Yeah,
not make it at all more deadly.
exactly. Yeah, it's absurd. So Batman saves the day. I will say it's kind of cool that he has the exact right calculus to shoot the batarang to where it swings right back into the vault where it was stolen from,
As Batman would.
as Batman would. And then, of course, the helicopter flies into the statue of Gotham
Uh,
Liberty, the Gotham statue, Liberty.
I
Okay,
mean,
sure.
we've talked about this. Metropolis is New York, right? Because they had the Statue of Liberty in the Superman films. So Gotham is also New York?
I
Question.
guess so. Not a big fan of making a Statue of Liberty in Gotham. It just raises too many questions, to quote the next scene we're about to talk about, which is the introduction to a one Edward Nigma or Enigma, Mike. Get it? Get
I
it?
do.
Enigma.
It's
Now,
hammered home. I get it.
to their to their credit, this was written into the comic book, so it's not like they strayed from what the actual character's origin is in the comics, but gotta be a top five worst comic book character names. I mean, it's just preposterous that someone would have the last name Nigma and first name E. Horrible. Hate it.
You know what? I will give credit or detriment, I guess, to the Martian Manhunter in DC Comics. He's a Martian. His Martian name is John Jones, and they his human name that he goes by is simply John Jones. Give me a break, man. That's such a
Incredible. What a coincidence. They would sound almost exactly the same. That's
that is
amazing.
so much worse in
You're right.
comparison to something like this.
Good call out there. Saved by Jean Jones, but bad name. And gotta say, not loving what's going on with Edward Nigma and Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is one of those comedy stars where what you see is what you get. He is pretty much Jim Carrey in every movie that he's in. Now we love Jim Carrey, and no, okay, you're giving a kind of a mixed face, and that's true. And I've praised a couple of his other films in which he does a phenomenal job playing an actual character. But he's pretty much Jim Carrey in every one of his comedies. And this character is Jim Carrey. I mean, let's be real. It's Jim Carrey. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. And as we mentioned, You're in the midst of an incredible run of Jim Carrey films, so that's all right. But it is utterly distracting, especially a series where you have Jack Nicholson getting into his a new role, Michelle Pfeiffer falling into the cat suit, Danny DeVito doing what he does as the Penguin, and then you have Jim Carrey as Jim Carrey, aka Enigma. Mike, talk me down from this cliff, man.
No, you're not wrong, but I will say, watching it this time, having grown up with Jim Carrey and having watched all of his comedies dozens of times over and over again, and all of his mannerisms are absolutely ingrained in me. There are parts of me when I was watching it, I was like, oh, that's Ace Ventura. Oh, that's Lloyd Christmas. And oh, that's the Cable Guy. There was one specific line, too, that he said where I was like, that is Cable Guy through and through, the way that he said it and delivered it. So he is kind of reaching a little bit across his own filmography to where he's bringing a little bit of difference, but all of these characters do ultimately make up the comedic role of Jim Carrey. And so this is like an ultimate Jim Carrey character in a way. He's taking all of his roles from the 90s and just kind of combining them together into one like super Jim Carrey in a way.
That's a better way to put it because you're right. I mean, Lloyd Christmas is quite different than Ace Ventura. They're not the same guy, but there's a Jim Carrey energy that carries across all of his films.
For
And
sure.
in this one, it's just like you said, he is almost like the Ultra Carrey, the final boss version of Jim Carrey, just
For sure.
doing Jim Carreyisms throughout. The other thing that really bothers me in this scene is that like his character meets Bruce Wayne and immediately is a clear, unstable, psychotic personality. This is not hiding it. His boss, Ed Beagley Jr., who went uncredited, I'm not sure why, but decided not to have his name in
What,
this film.
really?
Yeah, he is not in the credits actually. Immediately is like, oh no, I don't want him to talk to him. And he's an unstable personality. Now, this is like, again, if you play it in a way that's maybe subtle, try to like start well and then it goes awkward, Bruce Wayne is giving him an out. He's like, let's talk about this later, bro. And he's like, no,
Yeah.
I need an answer immediately. And he's like, well, then, no, the answer's no. You're crazy. And he acts like a complete psycho. The character development in the first two films is excellent with all the villains. They are very nuanced, complex characters. This is so one note, and he's just immediately telegraphing his villainy.
He's
Just
already the Riddler, basically. He has
all
no reason
exactly
to become the Riddler.
well said. It's not great right away. Now, we get into a little bit of the bat seduction. Okay, now this is pretty decent stuff. It's the car, right? Chicks take the car. Love that
Right.
line.
You
Love that
do love
line. Come
it?
on. I think it's funny. One of the only lines that actually like Val Kilmer lands. Now, let's talk a little bit about it, Mike. Val Kilmer, in many of his roles, not all of them, certainly, but in many of his roles, he is excellent at being subtle. 1995's Heat. He's a very subtle, coiled character, and he does that really well. His
Yeah.
looks alone can just send a whole lot just through small, subtle intonations. But he really does seem bored in this movie. He seems like he's phoning it in. I don't really think his Batman,
Mm,
to me, does not feel tortured. I don't feel like at least Michael Keaton brings a sort of psychotic energy, as we discussed, to his role in the first two, where he's a little bit unstable and crazy. There's no instability to this. He's just very flat to me through the whole thing, particularly in the Bruce Wayne scenes. Maybe that's him trying to hide the Batman, but I don't want to crap on Val Kilmer because, again, I really like him overall. I think, quite candidly, he's the worst Batman. I'll take Clooney over him, dog. I'm sorry. I will do that.
wow.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
I have a
But
lot to say. So if
okay,
I may,
please, let's
if
do
I
it.
may.
Let's do it.
I think a lot of what an actor brings to the table depends on what the director tells them to do. And my kind of ultimate case in point is Natalie Portman. And if you look at Natalie Portman and what she did in the Star Wars prequels, she is the definition of one note in those movies. She's completely flat. She has no emotion. Our planet is completely under siege right now. I'm Padme Amidala. Like, that's how she plays that role. The director told her to play that role that way. It's not far removed from when she was in Black Swan and Darren Aronofsky's directing her. And she ends up winning the Best Actress Oscar for that role like 3 years later. And I think if Val Kilmer had had a better director behind him at the helm, he could have played Batman way better than what he was directed to do. Having said that, Going through IMDb trivia, it's apparent that Val Kilmer and Joel Schumacher did not get along at all. And there was a lot of conflicts that happened on set. And apparently, he didn't even want to talk to him for like 2 weeks at a time. You can't do that in a movie between actor and director. You have to have communication to what's happening in a scene. Like 2 weeks, and you're just going to show up on set and do your own thing and just, I'm going to do it this way because F you, I don't like you, Joel Schumacher, and I'm just going to deliver it this way. You combine all these different things together, and I think that Val Kilmer is kind of underrated in a way. There's a lot of scenes where I'm like, I can see what he's trying to do, and I think that had he had a better director in his corner, maybe someone like John McTiernan, he could have found something and actually delivered a little bit harder, and it would have been a better performance. I kind of think the scenes actually with him and Nicole Kidman kind of work really well in a way. You know, he's talking about his own past and like he's talking about his repressed memories and how they're bleeding through in his everyday life and things like that. That's super interesting for Bruce Wayne. And there's a lot more that should have been explored there. But unfortunately, it just didn't pan out because for whatever reason, they decided not to in Joel Schumacher's vision.
You make some excellent points. That being said, yes, it comes down to the fact that they did not get along at all. And yes, there's widely reported they didn't even speak for 2 weeks on set, which is insane.
That's crazy.
Absolutely insane. To your point, that comes through in the performance. He does not want to be there. His energy is get me the bleep out of here. Get me out of this movie. I can't wait to be done with this. I'm over it. Okay. That comes through on the screen. Now, if you say in a hypothetical world, can he make a good Batman? I completely agree. He totally could.
He
He's a
totally
good
could.
actor. But in this iteration, it's very, very poor, Mike. I'm standing by it. I think he is the worst Batman, hands down.
I don't think he's worse than George Clooney, but agree to disagree.
Stay
I think he's
tuned.
I think he's underrated, and I would say Val Kilmer might be third or fourth best Batman,
Okay.
depending. So
We'll adjudicate this further in our next episode. Next big action scene, the massacre at the Big Top. One of the issues I have with this film, Mike, is that I think the stunts are very in the action, the fight sequences. Batman is doing a lot more punching and other moves. We've kind of discussed that Michael Keaton actually isn't all that physical as his Batman. You're getting more of a physical Batman in this film, but they're all poorly shot. I feel like the action choreography, the fight choreography, it's like right when someone's about to throw a punch, it cuts to a weird angle or something. I cannot, again, reiterate, this is shocking that this film was nominated for Best Cinematography at the Academy Awards. I think it's so poorly executed, and this is another one where I don't really like this.
it's almost a step away from showing the pow and kapow stuff on screen. Like
Absolutely.
they just decided to remove those graphics, but otherwise it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, again, it's just not well staged. Even the you have the acrobats up there, the Grayson family, even those shots, they're just not very well done. How do you screw up cool acrobatics? None of this feels really good to me. I really don't like the way it's shot and the way it looks. Didn't really enjoy this action scene much at all. I'll tell you which one I did kind of enjoy, and that's the next one. Miscarriage, as we're calling it. Get it? Where Tommy Lee
Oh,
Jones is pushing the carriage. This is a good one. I'm actually going to give credit where it's due. I enjoyed this one. You've got the 50s
why?
cars. Well, you've got the 50s cars with the gun turrets. I mean, that's just a cool look, you know? They've got gun turrets coming out. Now, do I love that Two-Face is like hiding under some blankets, pretending to be a lady pushing a buggy in the middle of Gotham City? I don't love that, Mike. No. But let me tell you what I do like. The frickin'
Okay.
Batmobile driving up a frickin' building, totally vertical, using bat harnesses, I guess, to leverage the car to drive in ways that cars aren't intended to. Sort of weird that it was just wide enough apparently for him to not roll over windows and just immediately bottom out and just get stuck. The tires were just in the right location that he wouldn't just bottom out
Yeah,
and get stuck
exactly.
immediately. But this one I liked. Not gonna lie, I enjoyed it.
I absolutely hated this scene. It comes out of nowhere. There's no setup to it. Batman is
Totally.
apparently just out there patrolling the streets randomly, and
Well, no, there
somehow,
there is a quick bat signal. He sees the bat signal. He's like, "Can you take care of Dick?" He tells Alfred, "Cover for me." and then it cuts to it. So like there is the elemental barest of setups, but you're not wrong to say it comes out of nowhere.
I mean, it comes out of nowhere. Apparently, Two-Face and his gang know where he's gonna be, and they ambush him somehow without any exposition or anything to set the scene up at all. But okay, we'll move on from there. And then, as you said, he shoots a grappling hook, and the Batmobile drives 90 degrees vertically up the top of the building. My question is, then what? How does he get off of this building? Or how does he even, what happens when he reaches the rooftop of this building? Does this car just hang there, or does it like somehow 90 degrees again get over the lip of the building? Well, the scene cuts, so we don't see any of that. So
Bear with me because I'm working this out in my mind in real time. Batman ejects himself from the Batmobile at the top of the building, swings over to the rooftop of the other building. The Batmobile still is grapple hooked connected, puts itself in reverse, drives back down the building, and parks itself
next
back on
to
the
all the
street.
criminals that are down there.
So clear, Mike. It's clear as day. It makes perfect sense. Come on, what are you talking about?
Perfect sense. Of course. I
Mike,
this maybe this is better served in I Got Questions, but man, this scene just utterly confused me to no end.
well, I'll take your Batmobile driving vertically up a building and raise you with an action scene I'm going to call Whackman. This is where Dick Grayson steals the Batmobile. Dick goes out, have a little joyride. Who can blame the guy, quite honestly? But what he decides to do is stunt in front of a bunch of prostitutes, adapt a completely racist Chicano accent, and
He does.
like, there's two scenarios here, Mike. Either he's going to get himself a prostitute and put her in the car, or he just wants to show off in front of the whores.
The latter, for sure.
Either option, not a great look
Not
for
great.
young Master Grayson. By
I
the
want to
way,
share too. I want to share real quick. Apparently, Chris O'Donnell insisted on being the driver in this scene. They wanted to have a stunt driver, and he was like, no, it's got to be me. And then proceeded to immediately dent the fender of the Batmobile in the nearby curve.
that's so great. I love it. That's hilarious. One thing, just this is random, but did you notice how this movie goes so hard to try to not say the character's first name, Dick? They try to avoid it so hard throughout the
Oh, I
entire
didn't.
movie. They only say his name, I think, maybe twice, but it's like, we can't. Oh, no, God, why does this character have to be named Dick? They just, oh,
Richard. He calls him
Master.
Master Richard, doesn't he?
No, he calls him Dick. They do say Dick, but it's like twice. They do not want to say Dick in this movie. Now, I can understand why not for multiple reasons, but to me, it was like really obvious how they kept dancing around not saying his first name. I thought it was
Oh,
quite
interesting.
amusing. All right, let's talk about the Nigma Tech Gala. That's our next big action scene. Fully interactive holograms. Bruce Wayne getting bullied into trying the Nigma Tech and the, of course, iconic Batman. Ah! You familiar with Batman? Ah! If you're not familiar with
It's a great
Batman,
soundbite.
it is a iconic meme. Batman drops through the roof. It zooms in on Nicole Kidman, and right next to her is some random dude going, Batman! Ah! Really great
Classic.
stuff.
Classic.
Yeah, again, yeah, I'm shrugging my shoulders. I'm going, okay, yep, there's some more action for you. Cool.
I kind of feel like they took a bit of what Batman's villain, Dr. Hugo Strange, should be in the scene, where he's extracting memories from the mind and using holograms to figure out who Batman really is. That's not really the Riddler's MO. That's more Doctor Strange's in this respect, Dr. Hugo Strange. That's much more akin to what his villainous is able to do. And
Nice.
I don't think that they should have really had a scene like this, honestly. It doesn't fit Riddler's motif at all.
Last one, the big grand finale. Not just a friend, a partner.
Well done.
Okay, cool. I like the Batman giving a thumbs up through the bat signal. That's become a nice meme that we can all use all the time.
Oh God, does he see him?
I
He can
guess
actually
so.
see him from the top of the building there?
I mean, he's like, Commissioner Gordon's giving up on it, and it's like, hey, look at me. Now I'm here. Thumbs up, buddy. Gotcha. Holy Rusted Metal Batman, the eye roll of all eye rolls. My eyes were stuck looking at my brain for approximately 5 minutes after that line. Yeah, Mike, I'm just gonna call it, man. This is just not good stuff. None of this action is really doing it for me. This is what we're here for with Superhero Cinema Club. We just want to see some cool stuff from superheroes. I'm gonna personally again give it defaulting to the Batmobile driving vertically up that because again, I kind of like that stunt with the car, regardless of how preposterous it is. And the 50s cars with gun turrets, it just looked cool to me. That was like one of the only times when action's going on, and I'm like, this is just cool. This looks cool. You should be saying that a lot in these movies. The only time I said it in this one, what's your best action scene?
I think my best action sequence is going to be Massacre at the Big Top because it is actually something that has an effect on the story. We've got Bruce asking her to the date and bringing her, even though she's immediately like, "Oh, I'm seeing someone," and he just kind of dropped out of the sky. That's a pretty big red flag on a first date with someone where she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go out with you, but just so you know, there's someone way more magical in my life than you right now." But having said all that, it is something that has an effect on the story. We get a setup and a payoff to where the bomb explodes and Robin's family dies, and that he kind of has more of a character arc than Bruce in that respect. This sets that up. So I'm going to go with that as my best action scene.
Next category, best non-action scene. Mike, I'm not really sure what to talk about here. I don't really want to adjudicate all of the bad non-action scenes. I'm just gonna give you the one that I did a little bit enjoy, and that would be the secret lair of Two-Face and Riddler's arrival. I got some questions overall. We'll go ahead and get this out of the way before we get into I've got questions, but you're just gonna decorate your place split down the middle. Half of it is like Two-Face, half of it's classy. Okay, he just carries that theme so far to even the level where he has two different girlfriends, one of which is like beautiful, dainty Drew Barrymore, who is quite lovely in this film.
Quite lovely, yes.
Then you've got Debbie Mazar, again, easy on the eyes, doing the dark stuff. I would say if I'm one of Two-Face's girlfriends, one of them has much worse situation than the other one. But sure, they've agreed to split it. The reason why I like this scene though is I really do I think this is where Jim Carrey is at his best as the Riddler. I like when he comes in. I like the stuff he's doing with the cane. He looks cool. His outfit is probably my favorite in this one with the bowler hat, kind of the classic Riddler look. This is the one scene where I kind of feel that they actually have some chemistry. To your point earlier about the troubled production, these two did not get along too well. There's a famous story about Tommy Lee Jones. Why don't you tell it? This is a good story, actually.
Yeah, I love this story. Apparently, Jim Carrey was quoted in saying that he saw Tommy Lee Jones outside of the film set and he was like, "Hey man, what's going on? How you doing?" And Tommy Lee Jones was just kind of seething and did not want to talk to him and he was just kind of saying like, "I hate you." And he was like, I'm really sorry to hear that. What's going on? Like, is there something I can do for you?" And he was just like, "I cannot sanction your buffoonery." And that's one of the all-time greatest quotes I think I've ever heard.
Absolutely. The thing about that story is that it's entirely plausible that Tommy Lee Jones would be the type of person to use that exact expression to the type of actor and performer that Jim Carrey is. I cannot sanction your buffoonery.
There are a few words that I would use to describe Tommy Lee Jones' performance as Two-Face in this film. Buffoonery is definitely one of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is definitely some pot and kettle stuff right there. No doubt about it.
And apparently they filmed this scene like the next day after that encounter.
How
So
about that?
yeah, I'm sure he's like pointing the fake gun at him like, "I wish this was real."
For whatever it's worth, this is one of the few moments that I found myself slightly enchanted with the film. So I'm going to pick that one as my best non-action scene. What do you got?
I'm gonna go with the scene where Bruce goes to talk to Dr. Chase Meridian for the first time as Bruce Wayne. He kicks in the door because he thinks that she's in trouble. and then they kind of have a back and forth, and it's kind of cute because Bruce knows that she likes Batman, but she doesn't know who he is, and so there's a kind of an added layer to their relationship already right off the bat. It's kind of interesting with he's trying to figure out why someone would leave riddles behind, and oh, because they're a wacko. And he's like, oh, is that your professional opinion? Like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of clever. And then he sees the Rorschach test on the wall, and he's like, oh, is that a bat? And she's like, why do you think it's a bat? Clearly a bat, but in any case, um,
Absolutely. It's 100%. It's the only thing it looks like is a
it's
bat.
it's
She's
really the
like,
only
oh,
thing
that's
it'll be.
telling. It's like, no, it's not. He's just describing what this particular Rorschach image is,
I,
which is
I,
clearly a bat.
I don't know what else it would be, but I just think that there's some good chemistry going on here, and it's kind of clever with the way that they set things up and how it
Yeah.
plays out. So that's my best non-action scene.
It's a solid choice. I enjoyed that scene too. It's not bad. And yeah, I like the beginning where he thinks she's getting beat up and he kicks in the door and she's just doing some little light kickboxing as one
Yeah.
does and during their break hour. Not bad. Next category, death and destruction. Death toll doesn't seem too strong in this movie. There's definitely a couple deaths. Obviously the Graysons. So that's
Yes.
four, correct? No, three. Because
No, I think it's
it's the
four.
two parents and his brother.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
three.
it's three there. Two-Face at the end.
That's all that I had.
Um,
Yeah, that
yeah,
was
I
all
think
that I
that might
counted.
be it. Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely more of a family-friendly movie. Not nearly as many murderers. Batman doesn't murder anyone, which I know you find is probably a big relief as a Batman shouldn't kill guy. I'm
Thank
with you, but
God. This is a family
thank
movie,
God.
Mark.
I do want to talk briefly about the script. I mean, I just think it's bad, Mike. There isn't any flow to this. One thing I mentioned with Batman Returns, this happens, therefore the next thing happens, therefore the
Yes.
next thing happens. That's the thing. Now, the South Park guys called this out. There's a great clip you can find of them talking about how the real way to tell a story is something happens and you want to use therefore or because in between the scenes. If you can use the words therefore or because, you've got something in terms of plotting. This is just
Yes.
one scene and then another scene and then the next scene and another scene. None of it flows. It's extremely choppy. I think this is a very, very poor script.
I have nothing more to add. I think you're absolutely right, and that the best scripts focus on, as John Wick, as he said, consequences. Something is happening because of something that happened earlier in the movie. Those are the best written scripts.
The directing doesn't do much for me either. I think Schumacher was probably a little over his head, and as we've discussed, it was very clear that this was a troubled production kind of throughout. Not great vibes on the set. Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones are not sanctioning one another's buffoonery. Joel Schumacher and Val Kilmer are not getting along. I think you can kind of see that in this movie. Apparently, there is a 2 hour and 40-minute cut of this film that is supposed to kind of flesh out the story. It's supposed to improve it. This is an evergreen question of release the director's cut. There is a morbid part of me that
Oh
would like to
man.
see that. And as recently as just May of this year, they were going to run in Hollywood an actual early cut of the film that would have kind of been the full director's 2 hour and 40-minute cut. Now, Joel Schumacher passed away in 2020, so he can't really advocate for himself in terms of release the director's cut, but apparently it exists to the point that they were going to screen it in Hollywood this year, and Warner Brothers shut it down with a cease and desist. Now, again, it's a morbid curiosity because I don't feel that this film could be greatly improved by a longer cut, but I am slightly curious. Nevertheless, I do not think this is a very well directed film.
I think there's a little more with Batman and his repressed memories and all the stuff that comes through while he's awake. I remember reading something about the red book that he picks up in his memory about what the journal that his dad wrote down. So I think there's a bit more in there, but
Yeah, I
I
think
don't.
that would have been a big part of it. Also, they built a giant animatronic bat
Oh,
that, you can kind of see it in the flashback scenes when he's having that vision of the bat.
yeah.
There's pictures you can actually find on the internet of Val Kilmer standing next to this giant bat head that they built for it. So, yeah, I think a lot of the director's cut would have had some more of repressed memory stuff. And that's another frustrating part about both the directing and writing here. They are playing with the idea of trauma, of duality, even more explicitly in this film than they did in the first two. And yet those themes never land. They don't ever really connect, even though they're far more explicit than they were in the first two.
Yeah, it has nothing to do on the rest of the story. It's just like we're gonna explore Bruce and the things that haunt him, but it has nothing to do with Riddler or Two-Face, and so it's kind of fizzle out and end up going nowhere. It kind of plays in because his love interest is what is she, a clinical psychologist, something like that,
Yeah.
but it ends up going nowhere.
Let's talk a little bit about costumes, gadgets, and secret identity. We talked about the Bat costumes. Not a fan of either the one he wears at the beginning or the, I guess, backup bat suit that for some reason is seems like even more sophisticated at the end.
Yeah, the prototype, which is kind of
Yeah,
cool because that is something that's in canon where he's always working on something new. And it's like, all right, my suit's been destroyed. The only one I have left is the one that I've been working on, but it's not combat ready, but I'm going to take it out anyway. And so I kind of appreciated that, but it just ends up looking like the suit that George Clooney wears in the next one. It's not great looking. It's
no.
even more shinier than the one he wears throughout the whole movie. And
Yeah, it's like almost like silver, sort of. It's
yeah.
like more kind of gray silver than it is black. Not a fan. The Robin suit's kind of cool. I will say the 60s version and what he was drawn in the comic books, extremely bright colors, red, yellow, and green. I kind of like the reimagining of the Robin suit. I'm not gonna lie, I think it actually looks pretty good. I do have questions about how Alfred was able to put this together so hastily.
Yeah.
Um, he's just like, where did this come from? And he's like, oh, Alfred made it. And it's like, what do you actually have a fabricator that can like make plastic suits in the back? I
He's
mean,
got like an injection molding facility in the back where he can
exactly. The first ever 3D printer is apparently at Wayne Manor in
I guess
1995.
he's
Yeah.
taking scans of his body, but it's very Tim Drake
Yeah.
much more than it is Dick Grayson. So
That's
Tim
right.
Drake being the third Robin or second or third, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. One of the letter
Um,
Robins. Yep.
But yeah, Dick Grayson kind of takes on a costume that is less traditional and much more modern especially in the 90s at that time. It's a better looking costume for him for sure to have, especially in comparison while he's standing next to Batman.
Yeah. Robin suit kind of comes out looking pretty good in this one. I do want to talk a bit about secret identity in this. There is a 0% chance that Chase Meridian doesn't immediately figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. As you pointed out, he gets right in her face immediately, super up close, not trying to shield his look. At least Batman in the first one is shining lights and blowing wind in Vicky Vale's face when she's trying to get a close look. He's just right face nose to nose with her. Then Bruce Wayne shows up. He's able to kick in doors. She can clearly tell that he's mentally disturbed. He has this traumatic past. There's no way she can't put that together right away. They never really say the point at which she does figure it out. At the end, there's the kind of
It's
a
the
reveal.
kiss.
You're right. They kiss. It's the Spider-Man thing where the kiss can do this now. I've kissed a number of girls in my life. I'm not necessarily sure that if I just had a blind kissing contest, I would be like, oh, that's, like you line up my exes and I smooch them all. I'm not sure if I could be like, oh, that's this ex versus that ex. I don't know. This has become a trope in superhero films, but that is what gives it away. I just think that, again, she would have figured it out immediately. Let's talk about the secret lair. Some good Batcave stuff in here. I'll give it that. You definitely, I think, get the most Batcave of the three films thus far in this one. Of course, it's blown to smithereens by the little penguin dolls. I guess a kind of a callback. But yeah, I like the Batcave in this. I mean, it's fine. It's not mind blowing. It's odd that there's like a staircase, but also like a tube connector all the way from Wayne Enterprises that
Hey man,
he
he's
can
got to get there
use.
somehow.
Kind of crazy, but sure, we'll go with that.
By the way, his code word for that is just chair
Chair.
because that'll never come up in conversation.
No one
Hey,
ever uses the word
take a
chair.
chair. Oh God.
He's got, where'd you go, Bruce? That's hilarious. All right, I shouted out my bad guy already. Let's talk good guy and bad guy.
Okay.
Who is your best supporting character, the good guy?
My good guy is none other than Jim Carrey as the Riddler. I think that he is doing things it's still Jim Carrey. He's always going to make me laugh. He's cracking me up in this role, despite the fact that, okay, fine, it's not a good acting performance. Who cares? It's Jim Carrey and the Riddler. He's at the height of his power in the 90s where he's not Ace Ventura. He's not Lloyd Christmas. He's the Riddler. Like, it's gonna be one of those things where he's Jim Carrey and he's awesome and I love him. I can't not give it to him in this role. He's amazing in this role.
That's fair. I may have oversold how much I was disgusted. It's less about the Jim Carrey and more about the fact that it's just not plausible as a character. His character is poorly written. Jim Carrey himself is doing the best job that he can to sell it. He is at peak Jim Carrey powers. He does have several lines that I found amusing and moments that I enjoyed, particularly towards the end.
I love when he takes Nicole Kidman's hand and he's like, "Shall we dance?" And then they have this ridiculous little dance where he's like all shoulders and she is doing everything that she can to just not burst out laughing in that moment. You can see it all over her face.
Yeah, there's some good Jim Carrey stuff here. It's not a shots at him. It's the way the character is written. For my good guy, we've talked about him in three straight films now. I'm giving it to Alfred, Michael Goff. Alfred kind of has a little less to do in this one, probably the least, really all the four of the films. But, he's just such a good grandfatherly figure. He does such a good job of selling the empathy for Robin, for being there for Batman. I really actually like the part where Bruce Wayne is kind of having the moment right after Robin arrives at his house and he said, "I killed them." And Alfred's like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Well, we could have saved them." And he's like, "No, you said I I killed them." And he calls him on it. Those little moments when he's able to kind of show the emotion and the paternal side of the Alfred character really shine in this movie, I think. And his empathy with Robin, I did kind of like when he does his sort of laundry ninja moment and is whipping his stuff around, grabs the mop to clean up his mess.
Yeah,
Kind of
bro.
enjoyed that scene. It's got to be Alfred for me. I mentioned my bad guy, Mike, Tommy Lee Jones. Who do you got for your bad guy in this film?
My bad guy is the bank vault security guard at the beginning of the movie. Oh no,
He's so
it's
bad.
boiling acid.
He's so bad. It's terrible. Immediately, it's so terrible. I will
Right out the
say
gate. He's
right out the gate,
absolutely terrible.
it's really conspicuous his hearing aid. Why is the camera lingering on this hearing aid? And then Batman uses the hearing aid to open the vault.
Not only that,
Again,
but when he pulls the hearing aid out of his ear, you hear the sound effect of like, oh,
yeah, you get the full sound effects. There's again, they're going over the top at all moments, but yeah, that is a really good call out for bad guy. That guy is awful. Now it's time for your favorite section, Mike. I've got questions.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.
Questions. Questions that need answering.
Too many questions. There's too many questions. There's just too many. Yeah. I'll ask the questions.
yours and mine. Come on.
It's a great section. This is really where we start cooking. And Mike, I've got a lot of questions about this movie.
Me too.
I'm gonna start with this one. At the very beginning of the film, this very first action scene with the helicopter heist, Two-Face just has a custom parachute with a yin and yang symbol underneath his suit at all times. It's just like, okay, just in case. You never see him like grab it out of the back of the helicopter, break glass to like pull the emergency chute. It's just apparently hidden under his suit the entire time. And not only that, like I said, it's got custom yin and yang branding on it. Wow. Once again, this comes back to the fabricators of Gotham City. There's someone who makes custom merch, whether the Joker needs it, whether you need a giant penguin in Batman Returns or a custom parachute in Batman Forever.
Two things about that scene. Number one, what is his plan? Is his plan to steal a bank vault or is his plan to kill Batman?
Totally. Yeah. I've got a lot of questions.
Because he fills every individual.
Yeah. Safety deposit box
Yes, exactly.
with
With
acid.
boiling acid.
Again, somehow it's heated as well so that it can boil and be boiling hot. Just so many questions here.
Number two with that is that the helicopter that he escapes on has a steering wheel. Did you notice that? Because the goon is like putting a club on it to try and the club that locks the steering wheel. I'm sorry, Mark. Helicopters do not have steering wheels because that only infers a left and right direction and not a full 360 direction that a helicopter can do.
It's a great point. Excellent point. My next question here is sort of obvious one, but like, what's Two-Face's whole deal? Harvey Dent, he's prosecuting this gangster I can't remember his
Maroni,
name. Yeah,
apparently.
Maroni. Yeah, Maroni somehow is able to sneak a vial of acid onto the witness stand, which has a lot of questions about the security going into the courthouse.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
then Batman is first of all there in outfit, so he's just like sitting
Naked,
in the
yes.
stands as Batman, which is like pretty odd. Batman literally leaps over the railing to try to save him. It's not as if Batman was somehow complicit in this or he's fighting with Maroni and then in the scuffle, the acid hits his face and then he can blame Batman. Batman is trying to help this guy, and yet he's blaming him for his disfigurement. I've just got a lot of questions about why you're so mad at Batman, Two-Face. What's going on?
The Two-Face thing has not really made a lot of sense to me at all because, okay, yes, there's like versions where the Joker makes Two-Face and like it's the chemical reaction of like his laughing gas or like mixed in with the acid that burns his face creates a chemical imbalance and it makes him unstable, or Paul Dini's version in the animated series where he already kind of has a split personality and so the acid just brings out that evil side of him. This does not have any setup. This has no backstory. This does not make any sense. My question, what does the title mean? What is Batman Forever? What does that even mean? It has nothing to do with the story. It just sounds cool, I guess. It's like a step away from where every movie in the 2000 that came out had the title like 2000 in it. It was like Dracula 2000 and
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
know, I don't
Yeah.
I don't I don't know
Even
what Batman
Batman 90.
Forever.
Let me just quote Tim Burton directly here. I always hated those titles like Batman Forever. That sounds like a tattoo that somebody would get when they're on drugs or something. Or something some kid would write in the yearbook. That is such a banger quote. I
That's
love it.
amazing.
100%. So let's rename this movie, Mike. What do you got?
Well, we got Batman and the Batman Returns, so this one might be Batman again. I don't know, something like a no, that's terrible.
Well, okay. You're not totally incorrect to go there.
Are
The
you kidding
working
me?
title, Batman Continues.
That's
Awful.
okay.
No,
That's better
I
than
think it's
Forever.
maybe, but it's still pretty bad. This is a little highfalutin, and I'm sure executives would have shot it down because they've been like, people don't know what it means. Batman colon duality.
Ooh,
Batman duality. You got Two
that
Face.
yeah,
You got the theme. Batman duality. Why not? That would have been my title.
not bad. My next question though, why is the circus televised? I have never seen in any city that they televise a circus, and there's like maybe 100 people in attendance there. It's like all of Gotham's elite, sure, the mayor's there, Bruce Wayne's there, of course. There's not that many people there, and it's a circus. That's not something that gets televised on GNN, the local or the
Yeah.
nationwide,
Yeah.
media circuit. Like, what are we doing here, guys?
Good question. That leads me to one of my circus questions. Two Face's whole plan is like, I need someone to tell me who Batman is. So Bruce Wayne stands up and he's like, I'm Batman. But he can't be heard over the crowd, which is
Right?
understandably freaking out. Run down there and be like, no, it's me. Raise your arm in the air and start waving it around. I know who Batman is. You can do more than just, oh, well, he couldn't hear me, so therefore I'm just gonna, take out a couple goons real quick. Get down there and let him
Um,
know if you want to save these people, Brett. Come on, Bruce
I
Wayne.
I will say he very quickly does escape in the hatch of the middle of the floor and like leaves the venue. As soon as the bomb starts ticking and like raises up, he's like, "All right, I'm out." But that raises another question of like, do you care about who Batman is, or do you care about blowing up this place? What are you doing? What's your motivation? And to that point, if you're gonna bring a bomb to a circus and activate it, why are you raising it up to the top of the circus tent immediately?
Great point.
Just so we can give it to the acrobats who then kick it off the top of the roof? That
Yeah,
didn't make any sense to me.
no sense. All right, my next question. Where's Batman at when the Riddler and Two-Face are doing their robbery spree? The
Yeah.
actual anchors on the news even call that out. They're like, where's Batman? And he's apparently just watching multiple robberies take place. You'd think they fire up the bat signal immediately. He's there. What are you doing, Batman? Where you at, bro?
I don't know. Yeah, great question. He's apparently just home watching the news, and who knows? Yeah, I will say Batman's a busy guy. He is always He's always stopping crime no matter where it is, and maybe he was busy at that moment. There's definitely been times in the comics where he learns about something that happened later. He should be focused on these two at the moment, so I don't know why he wasn't there. But I have a lot more questions, but I'm going to wrap it up here with just one more. And that is, why does he decide apparently to just quit being Batman? Out of nowhere, the scene cuts to him and Robin, and he's like, and so I am no longer Batman. And he like hits the button on the remote and it shuts down the lights on the Batmobile. Where did this come from?
Ostensibly, it's because he's kind of falling in love and he's sort of finally feeling like not dissimilar to Mask of the Phantasm. All right, I'm finding peace. I'm finding love. I don't need this aspect of my personality
But
anymore.
there's
But
no setup to that at
none.
all.
None. It's an extremely hasty decision. Yeah, I mean, we could do this all night, quite frankly. One of them for me is just like Robin is telling him, I got to get revenge. And Bruce Wayne's like, that's not going to solve anything. Why does he not tell him the Joker story? I had someone that killed my family and he died and it didn't bring me any peace. He has the opportunity to use a specific example from his own life that could calm this poor kid's troubled mind, and yet he doesn't do it. It's really shocking. But the biggest one for me, the entire time, it's not going to settle anything if Two-Face dies. It's not going to settle anything if you kill Two-Face. Well, guess what happens at the end of the movie? They throw a bunch of coins in the air. Two-Face falls to his death. So if Two-Face accidentally dies, then that's okay. We're fine with it. If it's slipping off a platform and he's getting killed, everything is resolved hunky-dory. There's no
It's
unresolved trauma.
Yeah, it's
Because he
incidental.
died in an incidental accident. Give me a freaking break.
Even
Come
though
on.
the camera zooms in on Robin watching him fall to his death, and he's like, "Oh
Exactly.
yes, this is exactly what I've wanted." The
It's
whole
like
time.
they make this whole hullabaloo about it's not going to bring you peace, and then it happens, and then oh, okay, well it's fine if as long again as you didn't intend to kill him, but he still died. Now we're good. Like that's
They didn't want to make them murderers, for a family friendly movie, and this is the way that they worked around that, I think.
all right. Now it's time for what's it really all about, Mike? I'm reaching here. I'm not gonna lie.
I think you just
If
covered it.
I mean,
It's vengeance, it's the things that happen in this movie. It's not going to bring you happiness. It's not going to bring you comfort. You're going to end up wanting more and more, and then one day you're going to look at yourself and wonder who you really are. And I think Bruce is right in that respect.
that's a good point. It's a fair theme. For me, the way I'm looking at this movie is that it's all about Jungian psychology and reconciling one's shadow self with their chosen outward facing identity. Batman can finally reconcile the two halves of his personality by unburdening himself and opening up to Dr. Chase Meridian and his young ward, Dick Grayson. Call me Mr. Fantastic with that reach because, Mike, this is an extremely shallow, very, very superficial film whose themes are muddled at best. Not a real deep movie. I think there's rich text, especially in Batman Returns, and very rich text in other Batman films. This is a shallow and crass reach for commercial appeal. That is the perfect segue into our final category, the final verdict. Mike,
A lot
I
of
gotta-
heavy sighs here from you at the
a
end
lot
of
of
this
heavy
podcast.
sighs, brother. I got to go a little bit big picture here. You've talked about how this film was influential on you as a young man. I've talked extensively on previous episodes about Batman being instrumental in my development as not only a superhero film aficionado, but my journey towards manhood and Michelle Pfeiffer. When I was 13, this movie comes out in 1995. I'm now 16 years old. I am extremely excited to see this movie because the whole family gathers around, much like yours. Take my young stepbrothers, the whole family to see it. And it was a crushing disappointment to me in the theater. I walked out of it in an absolute rage, feeling that this movie was borderline blasphemous to the two that had come before it. I shoved it away, much like Bruce Wayne, into the deep recesses of my memory and had not revisited it until we sat down to record. And
Really?
do this No, I never rewatched it until this. My first watch, I was utterly repulsed once again, brought back all of that repressed trauma and anger. The second rewatch, because I did rewatch it twice because I'm a professional when it comes to podcasting, I didn't hate it quite as much. I appreciated Jim Carrey's performance ever so slightly more, but this is real borderline between terrible and bad for me. I want to honor our system, which goes from classic, great, good, okay, bad, and terrible. I don't want to dishonor films that are merely bad by calling them terrible. This is right on that line, but I'm going to show the ever slightest bit of grace and label this merely bad. What is your verdict? We're ponying up for a big one here, folks. Let's go.
Like I said, I was 8 years old when this came out. I was prime candidate for this movie. And it was, as you said, as I said, formative in my early years as a young boy, becoming a man. And I still stand by the fact that Val Kilmer is an underrated Bruce Wayne in Batman and could have done a lot better had he had a better script and a better director behind him. Jim Carrey at the height of his power there is something that will never grow old to me. I will always watch Dumb and Dumber. I will always watch Ace Ventura, and those movies will always make me laugh. And this is part of that filmography that is just makes up what makes Jim Carrey great. And this is something that I will always look back on semi fondly. I can acknowledge the fact that is, yes, it's not a good movie. And there's a lot of things that we talked about here that are bad and scenes that don't make sense or feel out of place or what have you. But it still kind of holds a special place, not just for me, but pop culturally, with the soundtrack being as big as it was, Jim Carrey being as big as he was, Seal coming in with that song and that being such a massive hit. All these things kind of influenced me in my decision to say that this movie is okay. So I'm a little better on it than you are. I definitely respect you saying it's bad, and I completely understand you saying it's bad. In another podcast, I may come back and say, you know what, that movie's pretty bad, but it still holds a special place in my heart. I'm still gonna watch it through the eyes of an 8-year-old boy. There's still a lot of things about this movie that I hold dear. I think it's okay.
Much like the Bat Rorschach test that Bruce Wayne did, I will say this about this film. I think that movies don't make this much money. I mean, I didn't mention it at the top, but this had the biggest opening weekend of all time. It passed Jurassic Park from 1993 for the biggest opening weekend ever. It fell
That's
just short
crazy.
of the biggest opening week of all time. As we said, the second biggest movie of 1995, the biggest live action movie of 1995. This movie has its defenders. I think a lot of them are people in your age demographic. If you were a younger kid when this movie came out, it was probably your introduction to Batman. It certainly is more family friendly than the other ones. And so I can see this holding a place in your heart. I know some special guests that we're going to be having on in future episodes. They were young kids as well when this came out, and I think it holds a similar spot as you. But our own personal biases and memories come in extreme ways when ranking this movie because of our formative ages at the time. And as someone who was just the right age for both Batman and Batman Returns, by the time this came out, I was like, throw it in the trash. I hate this thing. And I really, really hate this movie, Mike.
I don't
Time for
hate
our
it as much as what we will be discussing next. So
Fair enough. It's time for our final category, our comic and film recommendations. Mike, why don't you kick us off?
So I'm going to start with my comic recommendation, which is not just one comic, but a series of 8 issues from the Batman universe. And it's called Batman One Bad Day, which was written by Mariko Tamaki, illustrated by Javier Fernandez. And One Bad Day, basically, there's 8 issues, and each issue focuses on each of his iconic villains in his rogues gallery. So there's one that focuses on the Riddler, one on Two-Face, one on Mr. Freeze, one on Catwoman, et cetera, et cetera. And it shows them and their backstory and their origin and just kind of says like what happens when one person is pushed to the utter brink and has the ultimate bad day to where half of your face gets burned in acid, you lose the person you love, and what will that do to you to turn you into a Batman villain essentially. And there are two in this series that I think relate really well to Batman Forever, and that is the Riddler and Two-Face, obviously. Really good illustrations, really good story, and giving you some context as to these villains and what they've kind of gone through. And it goes back years and decades even into their history and shows you really what they're all about and leads up to that one bad day that turns them into the supervillain that they become. And even like in the Two-Face one, the last page of that issue is him finally flipping the coin for the first time. And so I think it's a really good retrospective look at these villains and shows what they've gone through to become who they are. And I think that that works really well with my film recommendation, which we hinted at it earlier briefly, but Joel Schumacher, despite him making what a lot of people would say are a lot of bad films with Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, et cetera, et cetera, I feel like he has made a really good movie in what we talked about briefly in Falling Down. And Falling Down stars Michael Douglas, and it kind of mirrors that same theme of a person who has one really bad day. You know, his wife had left him, he gets fired from his job, he deals with the horrible traffic in Los Angeles, and he finally just kind of snaps. And I think that those two recommendations together serve as like a case study on what can happen to a person pushed to their limits, whether it's someone in Michael Douglas's position in Falling Down or someone in Two-Face or Riddler's position to becoming a supervillain. I think that this is a great psychological analysis of what can happen to a person in these extremely bad scenarios.
Great recommendations. Really would love to check out those comics. I've not read those, but that sounds like a really interesting angle. And been very long time since I've watched Falling Down, but I remember that movie was really shocking and it really grabbed the cultural zeitgeist at the time. There was a lot of concern in the 90s about what the term going postal actually
Yeah.
originated in the 90s when there was a mass shooting from a postal employee who kind of freaked out and somewhat impulsively murdered a whole bunch of people. That is the origins of the term going postal, and that's really what that movie was about. So it really captured the zeitgeist. And Michael Douglas, future Superhero Cinema Club actor, phenomenal in that film. He's a great, great actor. I really love Michael Douglas, and it's an excellent recommendation. For my film recommendation, I really wanted to go with something to honor late, great Val Kilmer. And I think despite Heat being an absolute masterpiece, one of my top favorite films of all time, I'm going to have to go with a different film that I just rewatched, and that movie is Tombstone. 1993, Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp and Val Kilmer as the Colorado legend Doc Holliday. Now, Val Kilmer is absolutely cooking in this film. He spends the entire movie sweaty, coughing, dying slowly of tuberculosis. Spoiler alert, the final little section of the movie is his actual death scene in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Definitely a bit of historical fiction because Wyatt Earp was not there with him on his deathbed, but there are some elements that actually did happen that are incorporated. But Val Kilmer is electric in this film. He's funny and morbid. He has incredible dialogue. His accent that he uses is this like southern, almost like whispering, but he talks so much crap, and he's heroic, but he's also a rascal. It's just a really, really great singular performance. I can't imagine anyone else doing as good of a job as Val Kilmer did in that role. He absolutely kills it. The entire movie is a phenomenal ensemble featuring, as I mentioned, Kurt Russell, Michael Biehn's in it, Dana Delaney, future Superhero Cinema Club star. Sam Elliott is one of his brothers. Bill Paxton's the other brother. Jason Priestley, 90s icon, is in the film. Michael Rooker is in the film. Billy Zane, even Charlton freaking Heston is in this film. Very troubled production. It's definitely not a flawless movie. It gets kind of weird towards the end where it's just sort of becomes like the last 30 minutes are like literally like one long montage. So not necessarily a perfect film, but if you're looking for one of the absolute great Val Kilmer performances, definitely check out Tombstone. It is just as good as you remember watching in the 90s. On that note, brings us to the end of another episode of Superhero Cinema Club. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Join us again next week. We're going to be going over the final live action Batman movie of this season, 1997's Batman and Robin. Mike, I told you this before. I had never watched this movie in full until just a couple weeks ago, so I definitely have some thoughts. I'm really excited to get into it with you. It is a very infamous film in superhero film history. Another one with a stacked cast that may or may not be underrated, question mark?
Well, you'll have to stay tuned and find out what we say about it. So,
Same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week on Superhero Cinema Club.
Superhero Cinema Club is hosted by Mark Schiff and me, Mike Carnes. Produced by Mark Schiff. Editing by Mike Carnes. Original music provided by Chris Carnes. Find him on Spotify. Be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us at Superhero Cinema Club, and don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a review. Join us next time as we dive into another epic adventure from the world of superhero cinema.